Hello, my fellow YouTubers and subscribers, and welcome to today's movie review. Today, I review Taxi Driver. This movie was directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Robert De Niro, and was released in 1976. This review was a request by a good subscriber and friend of mine, Jack the Film Fanatic. Sorry Jack, sorry it took so long to get to the review, but thank you for your patience. I hope it was worth the wait. I'm slowly chipping away at the requests that I have to do. And believe me, I've got quite a bit. The plot of this movie is as follows. A mentally unstable veteran works as a nighttime taxi driver in New York City, where the perceived decadence and sleaze fuels his urge for violent action by attempting to liberate a presidential campaign worker and an underage prostitute. There we go, that's the plot of Taxi Driver. So, Taxi Driver, this is a very interesting movie, and I think it's a movie that could be very misleading. This movie, by the description of the plot, you would think that it would be a sort of shoot-'em-up, violent action film. It's not quite that. This movie is really a sort of character study into Travis, the main character of the movie, who really becomes psychotic. We get to see him living his life, and he's not really happy with the life he's living. He's just kind of going through life. Another dull day, he's working long hours, he's a cab driver. And he's not really getting any fulfillment out of life, he's just paying his bills and that's that. And then we slowly start to see him unravel, and Robert De Niro gives a very intense performance. I must say, it's a very intense thing that he goes through. I really liked the start of the movie and seeing how he was just a normal guy. He was at first kind of a nice guy, and he tries to win the affections of Betsy, who is a political campaign worker who is at first kind of charmed by him. Betsy then starts to realise that there is more to him than meets the eye, that he's probably only after one thing. After he takes her to a movie which is very pornographic, she decides to leave him. She decides that no, this guy is not who he says he is, and bye-bye. He's not actually very politically interested in what's going on. He just fancies her. that's all. She recognises that, and she realises that they don't actually have that much in common after a while. He was just trying to win her over, which is a shame that, and then that doesn't work out. The other female of this film is Iris, who is the 13-year-old prostitute. Yes, it is as uncomfortable as it sounds. It was rather uncomfortable to watch Jodie Foster in this movie playing a prostitute, as she's only about 13 years old. That being said, obviously it does work with the story, and it was necessary for it to happen like that. And Foster is very good in the film. I do like her character. She's this girl who's just trapped in this situation, and she never asks for anyone to rescue her, but Travis takes pity on her, and he goes to meet her, and he says, I don't want to have sex with you. I want to get you out of this, because you shouldn't be doing this. You're a young girl, you should be going back to your parents, living your life. You shouldn't be caught up in all this. So there we do see Travis's sensitive side. As the film goes on, he develops a bit of a taste for violence, and we see him crafting his weapons. He buys about 5 different guns, and he goes on a murder spree. I really liked the relationship between Iris and Travis. The fact that he just sees her as this young, innocent girl, and he just wants to help her, and he actually gives her money to go back to where she lives. My sort of main criticism of the film is that I don't think we really see enough of Iris. I do think she is kind of underused. She's introduced a bit too late into the film for me. I would have preferred the film to kind of bring her in a bit sooner. That would have been nice. And also, Betsy isn't really in the film much. I think Betsy could have contributed more to the story, but we do see her again at the end of the film when she does go in the cab ride with him, and she's like, how have things been? And I read about you in the papers, and then in the end he decides to not let her pay her fare, and he says, it's fine, have it on me, and he drives off. So there is a bit of closure with that, but still, her screen time is quite limited. I think the music of this film is really good, actually. The music does become quite repetitive, but I mean, I can forgive that, because I like the style of it. It's kind of, it's got this sort of jazz saxophone vibe, and it's kind of odd for a film like this, because the film has a kind of, at first, quite a somber tone, and that actually works quite well. I'm surprised how well that blends. Martin Scorsese's direction of this film is very good, and he really knows how to craft this film. He understands the character. We really just see a lot of the character in isolation, and Martin Scorsese portrays that very well. Fact is, Travis is a character that is isolated. He lives on his own, he drives people around in cabs, but he doesn't really have any close relationships, and he really just descends really into a psycho. Even though that happens, you do still feel a degree of sympathy for him, because he does try and do something nice for Iris, and he does try to get her out of her situation. Except he just goes a bit doolally, should we say. He actually cuts his hair as well. He develops a bit of a sort of a kind of a mohawk sort of hairstyle to sort of show how much he's changed, which is interesting. He becomes a lot harder and a lot more fierce and more ruthless. This movie could be misleading. This is a film that could be construed as being kind of a shoot-'em-up action film. It really isn't that. It's not. There is not a lot of action in this movie. This movie does have violence, but more towards the end of the film when he goes on his killing spree to rescue Iris, and that turns into a bit of a bloodbath. Although the first person he kills is there's a robber who comes to rob the shop, a sort of grocery store, and then he has to get out of the way before the police turn up. I really like Robert De Niro in this film, the way he slowly sort of builds and builds and builds to the point where the character just... It's almost like an explosion of rage, really. He kind of unleashes into this murderer, but you feel sorry for him. Like, there's a lot of times when we see him in his apartment sitting on his own. He's not doing much, he's just crafting his weapons, and he's just sitting there eating and feeding himself, and then he just decides to change one day. There's even a moment when he writes a letter to his parents, who we never see in the movie, but he says, oh, you know, I'm doing fine, I've got this job as a cab driver, and I met this lovely girl called Betsy, and we're doing alright, and the truth is quite the opposite. I really like the cinematography in this film. The fact there's a lot of nighttime scenes, obviously because he is a nighttime taxi driver, and the use of lights and colours are really nice, and Scorsese can make a film that looks great. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He is a talented guy, for sure. I mean, Travis isn't completely alone. He does have a couple of people that he meets up with in a cafe every so often, but they don't feature a lot in the story, and he's not really close with anyone as such. I also really like the scene when he tries to kill the political senator who's about to give his speech, and then the bodyguard actually sees him nearly get a gun out, and then Travis has to run away. That was quite a good scene. I actually did think he was going to kill him, which was just weird. Yeah. The movie isn't very long. It's actually under 2 hours long. It's 1 hour 50 minutes. It's paced very well, and it moves along very quickly. I think Paul Schrader's script is excellent for the film, and we really get to really see this character. And in a way, you just feel really sorry for the guy. Like, he's lonely, and he's almost, I guess, slightly depressed, really. There's, you know, if you look at it from a psychological point of view, he's very damaged, and it's, you know, interesting to see him unleash that rage. Really interesting how Robert De Niro plays him, how he is genuinely a nice guy, but he can't hang his life together. His mental state is not quite there, and it's almost kind of sad, really. It's almost tragic, really, the way it works out. The films like The Joker kind of remind me of this film. The Joker is a much more psychologically damaged character, but I get a similar vibe with that to this. I think the rest of the supporting cast do a good job. I'm not going to name them all by hand because that would just take too long, but they all do a good job. There isn't one person that is bad at all. I will give a mention to the person that plays the pimp. I think the character's called Matthew, and there's a moment where he actually sort of gets Iris up and he starts dancing with her. That is a little bit uncomfortable when he's dancing with her and he's like being all smooth, and he's like, you know, oh, you know, I depend on you and I rely on you, and you know, you're my girl and all that. It's just weird because she's 13. It's just a bit uncomfortable, but I think that was in a way good because the movie wants you to feel uncomfortable by this guy. You want to feel the way Iris does. So it's a risky move making her that young, but it pays off. And for one of Jodie Foster's earliest roles, it's pretty damn good. She does a good job. I mean, again, she's just not in it very much. I would have liked her to be in it more, but that's only a minor criticism. So, to conclude this review, I think I will give this movie a 10 out of 10. Thank you very much, Jack, for the request, and I hope you enjoyed the review. And what do you guys think of Taxi Driver? Please comment down below, let me know, and stay tuned for more reviews in the future. And good luck during the lockdown period. Good luck. So until next time, I'm Mr. TARDIS11. See ya.